In the restless rhythm of the modern world, where people are constantly encouraged to be faster, stronger, louder, more visible, the soul of Cancer moves in a very different way. Not loudly, not with display, not with any need to prove something to the crowd, because deep within their heart, Cancer carries a kind of strength the world is often too hurried to notice, the strength of genuine care. While many chase the peaks of recognition and outward success, a Cancer quietly protects the simple things in life that are far more precious. A hug at the right moment, a gentle question filled with understanding, a quiet presence beside someone going through difficult days. For Cancer, love is not a grand promise. Love is made of small actions, repeated day after day, with complete sincerity. Some people enter another person's life like a gust of wind. They arrive, make noise, and eventually disappear. But there are also souls who enter like a warm lamp in the middle of a dark night, not blinding, not overpowering, just quietly there, long enough, gentle enough to make someone feel safe. Cancer is often that kind of soul. Around them, people tend to feel something very rare, as if they no longer need to pretend to be strong, no longer need to hide their wounds, no longer need to become a perfect version of themselves, because the heart of Cancer understands something very simple. And very profound. Human beings were never born to be perfect. We were born to feel, to connect, to learn how to love, and to be loved. And strangely enough, in a world that sometimes grows colder by the day, gentleness becomes a rare form of strength. Many people look at Cancer and assume they are too sensitive, too soft, too easily moved by small things. But the truth is, it takes immense courage to keep a warm heart in a world that often rewards emotional distance. Cancer did not come here to compete with the world. They came here to remind the world what truly matters, that behind the titles, the achievements, the numbers, what makes a human being truly unforgettable is the way they make others feel. Some people make a room louder when they walk in, but others make a space calmer, simply through their presence. Cancer carries the second kind of energy, like soft moonlight reflecting across the surface of the ocean. When they are not trying to illuminate everything, they simply spread quiet peace. And sometimes, that peace becomes a refuge for tired hearts. Perhaps that is why in many families, in many circles of friends, in many relationships, there is often someone who carries the spirit of Cancer, the one who remembers birthdays, the one who checks in when someone has been silent longer than usual, the one who quietly holds the invisible threads that keep people connected. Not because they have to, but because their heart was born with a very rare ability, the ability to feel what others truly need. The world often celebrates strength in loud ways, but there is another kind of strength, deeper, quieter, and far more enduring. The strength of those who still choose love, even when life has not always been gentle with them. And in many cases, Cancer is one of the souls carrying that silent strength. Because behind their sometimes quiet exterior lies a vast emotional ocean. So they are a rich inner world, a heart always willing to open itself to real connection. But the story of Cancer does not end with gentleness. Behind that warmth exist deeper spiritual gifts, abilities not everyone recognizes at first glance. Some of these gifts allow Cancer to understand others without many words. Some help them preserve memories and values the world is slowly forgetting. And some gifts allow them to sense something deeper than what the eyes alone can see. So these gifts are not always loud, but over time, they reveal themselves through the way Cancer loves, protects, and quietly lifts the people who pass through their life. And when we listen to this story a little more slowly, when the heart opens just a little wider, we begin to see something rare within the soul of Cancer, qualities that make them more than just a zodiac sign. They become something closer to a small home in the middle of a vast world. So it's a place people long to return to when they feel tired. And from that quiet place of peace, a very special heart begins to reveal its first gift. Within that gentle heart, another quality slowly begins to reveal itself over time, a natural instinct to protect and to nurture others. It runs so deep that sometimes even Cancer does not realize they have carried it since the very beginning. No one had to teach them. No training was required. That instinct rises naturally, like the tide of the ocean lifting quietly when someone needs shelter. Many people describe it as a maternal heart, but the truth reaches far beyond that, because this energy is not defined by whether someone becomes a parent or not. It belongs to the soul. A Cancer may have never held a child in their arms, yet they can still calm another person's worries with nothing more than a gentle sentence, spoken at the right moment. They may never build a traditional family, yet somehow they create the feeling of family wherever they go. And the remarkable thing is, they do all of this naturally. Among friends, Cancer is often the first to notice when the atmosphere in the room begins to grow heavy. Within a family, they are the one who remembers small details others easily overlook. Someone eating less than usual, someone speaking a little less than before, someone smiling, but with eyes that quietly fall into sadness. Those subtle shifts rarely escape Cancer's awareness, not because they are trying to observe everyone, but because their heart is always listening. There is a kind of care that does not make noise. It does not make people feel examined. It does not force anyone to explain themselves. Cancer tends to choose that kind of care, a message arriving at just the right moment, a gentle sentence spoken when someone has gone quiet, a patient presence beside someone who is not yet ready to open their heart. These gestures may seem small, yet they carry a quiet power. Because when people truly feel cared for, something inside them begins to soften. Their breathing slows, their defenses lower, and for a moment, they allow themselves to be vulnerable. Cancer understands this deeply. Perhaps that is why, after a long, exhausting day with the world, many people find themselves drawn towards someone with Cancer energy. Not to receive complicated advice, but simply to sit beside a heart that understands something very important. Sometimes human beings do not need immediate solutions. Sometimes what we need most is simply a place to rest. And the heart of Cancer often becomes that place, like a small shelter during an unexpected rainstorm. It does not stop the rain from falling, but it gives someone a moment to pause, to breathe deeply, and to realize they are not facing everything alone. What makes this even more beautiful is that Cancer does not see their care as a heavy responsibility. They do it because, deep inside, they feel genuine joy when the people they love feel safe and peaceful. The happiness of others touches their heart directly. Someone once said that the balance of this world is maintained by the people who still know how to care for others. And if that is true, Cancer plays a very important role in that balance. While many people learn to keep distance as a way to protect themselves, Cancer often chooses the opposite path. They open their heart wider, not because they are unaware that love sometimes carries pain, but because they understand something essential. If no one remains willing to care for one another, the world would become unbearably cold. And so, even when life occasionally leaves them tired, Cancer rarely abandons their instinct to love. That heart is like a small flame. Not explosive, not dramatic, but steady, warm, and strong enough to warm the lives of those who pass through the colder seasons of life. Yet what makes this heart even more remarkable is not only the care it gives. Hidden behind that gentleness is another ability, more subtle, more profound, an ability that sometimes allows Cancer to understand things before others have even spoken them aloud, as if they are listening to an invisible language of emotions, a language that needs no words. And from the quiet stillness of that protective heart, another doorway slowly opens within the inner world of Cancer, a place where intuition begins to whisper. From that quiet stillness, another ability slowly becomes clearer over time. Intuition. Not the kind that appears briefly and then disappears like a passing feeling, but something deeper, a quiet current flowing beneath every thought, beneath every emotion. It's like underground water, silently nourishing an entire forest above the surface. People who carry the energy of Cancer often do not need many words to understand what is happening inside another person's heart. Sometimes all it takes is a passing glance, a short pause in someone's sentence, a smile that lingers just a moment too long. For many people, those signals are easy to overlook. But for Cancer, they feel like doors quietly opening, revealing stories that have not yet been spoken aloud. That is why being around cancer can leave people with a strange feeling, part surprise, part relief. Surprise because cancer seems to understand something before any explanation is given, and relief because, finally, someone has noticed the real emotion behind the calm exterior. Cancer's intuition is not guesswork. It is a form of deep listening. They do not listen only with their ears. They listen with the vibration of the heart. A room may be filled with voices, yet cancer often notices immediately when the atmosphere begins to change, when the joy in a conversation slowly fades, when someone is trying to appear strong while their inner world is quietly unraveling. These things do not need to be explained, because cancer's intuition can read the invisible lines written inside human emotions. Perhaps that is why many people find themselves drawn to cancer during heavy moments of the soul. Not because cancer always has perfect answers, but because they offer something rare, the feeling of being understood before having to explain. In deeper conversations, cancer often notices what truly lies behind the words. Someone may talk about work, yet cancer hears exhaustion. Someone may say they are fine, yet cancer senses the quiet sadness underneath. Someone may laugh brightly, yet their eyes tell a different story. These small details rarely escape their awareness. And what makes this gift beautiful is how cancer uses it. Not to judge others, but to understand them. Their intuition is deeply connected to compassion. When they feel someone's pain, they do not stand outside observing it. Their heart often moves with that emotion. Another person's joy makes them smile sincerely. Another person's sadness makes them grow quieter and listen longer. Because of this, cancer often becomes the emotional balance within many relationships. Not because they intentionally try to take on that role, but because their sensitivity naturally guides them there. They notice tensions others try to hide. They see fragile hopes someone is afraid to express. They sense fears resting deep within a person's heart. Sometimes, even before that person fully understands them, their intuition acts like a delicate compass, guiding them through the complex landscapes of human emotion. In a world that often values logic and speed, this sensitivity can sometimes make cancer feel different. And they feel too much. They notice too many layers of meaning in things others consider simple. Yet that very awareness is also an extraordinary gift, because life is not built only from what we can see. Some of the most important parts of being human live quietly inside the emotional world. Longing, hope, wounds, the deep desire to be understood. Cancer enters these emotional landscapes as naturally as someone who has long studied the map of the human heart. Because of this, they often become quiet guides within many relationships, not through grand speeches or dramatic advice, but through an empathetic presence that helps others feel less lost inside their own inner world. And over time, this intuition does more than help cancer understand others. It begins to reveal deeper truths about themselves as well. Every emotion they feel, every story they listen to, becomes another piece in the inner mosaic of their soul. Piece by piece, these fragments begin forming something even deeper than intuition itself, a rare ability. The ability to transform the deepest emotions of life into understanding, into compassion, and sometimes into a small light for someone walking through the darker places of their own heart. From that deep well of empathy, another ability slowly begins to emerge over the years, an ability not everyone can see at first glance, the ability to transform emotions. At first, many people only notice the surface. They may think cancer is simply too sensitive, that their heart is more easily wounded, that they feel everything too deeply. But if someone looks a little closer, a very different truth begins to appear. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is a quiet form of strength, almost like a kind of emotional alchemy happening silently within the inner world. When emotions enter the heart of cancer, they do not stop there. They are listened to, held gently, understood, and over time, transformed into something meaningful. Pain does not remain just pain. It becomes compassion. Memories do not remain just memories. They become the wisdom of the heart. Moments of loneliness do not remain empty spaces. They become the ability to understand the loneliness of others. This is why many people feel deeply understood when they are around cancer. Not because cancer always offers perfect answers. but because they truly feel what is happening inside the other person. They do not listen only with their ears. They resonate with their heart. When someone speaks about a wound, Cancer does not just hear the story. They feel the layers of emotion hidden beneath the words. Perhaps that is why their presence often creates a very special atmosphere, a feeling that you do not need to explain everything. You do not need to prove your strength, because somehow, the person across from you already understands. And that understanding does not come from books. It comes from experience. Many Cancer souls have known loss. They have known waiting, hoping, and sometimes disappointment. Yet instead of allowing those experiences to close their heart, they often choose another path. They transform what they have felt into empathy for others. Someone who has cried in silence often understands best the meaning of unspoken tears. And someone who has walked through dark days often knows how to light a small candle for someone else. Cancer is often that kind of soul. They do not deny emotions. They do not run away from them. They move through them slowly, patiently, until they understand what those emotions were trying to teach. And through that process, a rare kind of wisdom begins to form, not the wisdom of logic, but the wisdom of the heart. What this wisdom allows Cancer to see meaning in experiences others might dismiss as sadness. A breakup becomes a lesson about the true value of love. A disappointment becomes a reminder about sincerity. A lonely season becomes a quiet invitation to understand oneself more deeply. Every emotion, every memory, every story is kept carefully within their heart, like small stones helping to build a bridge between one human soul and another. And when someone meets Cancer during a moment of exhaustion in life, sometimes a single look of understanding is enough to make that person feel lighter. Not because the problem has disappeared, but because they realize someone truly understands their feelings. And sometimes, that alone is enough to give a person the strength to keep going. Cancer does not always need grand words to help heal another heart. Their sincere presence, their honest emotion, is often enough to create a space where tired souls can finally rest. That is why the sensitivity of Cancer is not special simply because they feel more. What makes it extraordinary is how they transform those emotions into understanding, into compassion, and into comfort for people walking through the difficult seasons of life. What they feel so deeply eventually becomes a gift for others, and as that heart continues to expand over time, another ability slowly begins to reveal itself. Not only the power to transform emotion, but the ability to create a rare sense of peace. A feeling that wherever someone is, they may suddenly realize they have just found a place that feels like home. That sense of peace does not stop at understanding. Over time, it grows into something even deeper, a feeling that is difficult to describe, yet anyone who has experienced it recognizes it immediately. It is the feeling of belonging. For many people, home is a location, a room, a house, a place to return to after a long day. But for Cancer, the meaning of home is much larger than that. Home is not just a place. Home is a feeling. It is the moment when the heart can finally lay down its armor. The moment a person no longer has to pretend to be strong. The moment someone's presence makes you breathe more slowly and realize that you are safe. And the remarkable thing is, Cancer carries that feeling wherever they go. A simple conversation, a small shared meal, a quiet afternoon where two people sit beside each other without needing many words. In those very ordinary moments, Cancer creates a space where people feel truly seen. Not the perfect version of themselves, not the strongest version, but their real self, with all the unfinished pieces. Perhaps that is why, after knowing a Cancer for some time, many people begin to notice something interesting. Around Cancer, they find it easier to say things they usually keep hidden, in thoughts they have never shared, worries they have quietly carried alone. Not because Cancer forces anyone to open up, but because their presence creates such a safe atmosphere that the heart naturally begins to speak the truth. Part of this comes from something very deep within the Cancer soul, their loyalty. When Cancer allows someone to enter their emotional world, it is never a careless decision. They do not easily label a relationship as important, but once they do, they hold on to it with complete sincerity. Their loyalty is not loud. It does not require dramatic promises or declarations. It lives in small actions repeated quietly over the years. A message checking in after many days apart. An embrace when someone has just faced failure. A silent presence when life suddenly becomes difficult. Cancer is not the kind of person who disappears when dark clouds begin to gather. In fact, during the hardest moments, their presence often becomes even clearer. Not because they enjoy facing hardship, but because in their heart, commitment does not belong only to easy days. Commitment means staying even when things become complicated. In a world where many connections appear and disappear quickly, this quality becomes incredibly rare. Many people have grown used to constant change. Friends change, work changes. Relationships sometimes feel fragile, like threads that could break at any moment. But when someone encounters the energy of Cancer, they often feel something very different. A sense that this connection has depth, that it does not exist only during happy days, that if a storm appears, there will still be someone standing there, patiently, quietly, holding the thread of connection so it does not break. It is this quiet endurance that makes Cancer a source of stability in many lives. Not everyone notices it right away, but over time, when people look back, which many realize that during the hardest moments of their life, there was always a familiar presence nearby. Someone who did not need to say very much, someone who simply stayed, someone who did not walk away. And sometimes, that simple presence carries far more meaning than the most beautiful promises. That is why for Cancer, creating the feeling of home is not a role they try to perform. It is simply the way their heart exists in this world. A heart that opens. A heart that waits patiently. A heart that protects the invisible threads connecting one human being to another. And yet, beneath that loyalty and warmth, there is something even deeper. Another quiet gift. An ability that often leaves people feeling lighter after spending time with Cancer, as if a small piece of their pain has been gently soothed. Not through complicated advice, but through a very pure energy. An energy that reminds us that sometimes, sincere love itself can become a form of healing. When a heart is warm enough to shelter others, patient enough to stay, and deep enough to understand another person's pain, sometimes it opens a very special door, a doorway that leads toward things the eyes alone cannot easily see. This is the final quiet gift within the soul of Cancer, a gift touched with a little mystery. Many people who have spent time near Cancer notice something difficult to explain. They seem to sense things before others even realize them. A dream that wakes them in the morning with the feeling that a message has just arrived. A fleeting intuition before something happens. A subtle sensation when entering a room, as if the air itself is telling a story. Experiences like these cannot always be explained through logic, yet for Cancer, they feel as natural as the rising and falling tide of the ocean. And perhaps that is not accidental. The symbol of Cancer has always been closely connected to the moon. And for centuries, across human cultures, the moon has been seen as a symbol of emotion, of memory, of quiet cycles moving beneath the surface of life. The moon does not shine like the sun. Its light is softer, quieter, more reflective. Yet it is precisely that gentle light that helps us notice subtle things in the dark. Cancer carries a similar kind of energy. They move through life not only with the eyes that observe the outer world, but with a deep sensitivity toward the inner one. A part of them lives among everyday responsibilities, familiar conversations, the practical rhythm of daily life. But another part of them quietly travels deeper into the emotional landscape, a place where old memories still whisper, where intuitions appear like a passing breeze, where dreams sometimes carry images the mind has not yet learned how to explain. Because of this, many Cancer souls feel naturally drawn to introspective spaces, music, art, books that explore the human spirit. Moments of quiet where they can listen to themselves. But these things are not an escape from the world. On the contrary, they are Cancer's way of connecting with the deeper layers of life. They understand something many people forget. Not everything important can be seen immediately. Love cannot be seen. Hope cannot be held. Trust cannot be measured by numbers. And yet these invisible forces shape most of our lives. Cancer seems almost born to remind the world of this truth. In relationships, but they often become a bridge between what people say out loud and what they truly feel inside. They notice the words that remain unspoken. They sense sadness that has not yet been acknowledged. They hear the smallest hopes someone is still hesitant to name. And through their presence, they allow those emotions to breathe. Perhaps that is why, in many life stories, Cancer appears as a very special companion. Not necessarily the person who solves every problem, but the one who makes the road feel less lonely. A small light in the night. A gentle voice reminding us that the heart still matters. If you are Cancer, you may have wondered many times why you feel things so deeply. Why small moments of joy move you so strongly. Why another person's sorrow sometimes touches your heart as if it were your own story. But these things are not a burden. They are a gift. A gift that allows you to see layers of meaning others may overlook. A gift that allows you to become a refuge for hearts searching for understanding. And if there is someone with Cancer energy in your life, there is a good chance you have already felt this. The sense that around them, the world slows down a little, worries grow a little lighter, and the heart is allowed to soften again. In an era where people connect easily, yet sometimes struggle to truly understand one another, the presence of Cancer feels like a quiet reminder that compassion still matters, that loyalty still has meaning, that genuine human connection remains one of life's greatest treasures, and sometimes all it takes is a heart deep enough to listen, to make the world a little warmer.